Hey everybody. Today I'm starting to do something I've been wanting to do for a while. And that's to post up videos about what I learned at church today, what the sermon was about. So today I was at my church here in Oklahoma City, the Gate Church at Wilshire and Council, and it was another good sermon by Bishop Tony. And his title for today's message is "This Christmas I Choose Grace." And it was a sermon based on the prodigal son passage back in Luke chapter 15 verses 11 through 32. I'll read that, and then I'll go through his points on what he was preaching about today. It's because I want to share it with you guys because I think it's important. Here we go. It's Luke 15 11 through 32. And it says, "And he said, a certain man had two sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me. And he divided unto him his living, his inheritance. And not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, and took his journey into a far country, and there wasted his substance with riotous living. And when he had spent all, there arose a mighty famine in that land, and he began to be in want. And he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed pigs. And he would fill his belly with the husk that the swine ate, and no man gave him any food. And when he came to himself, when he realized what he was doing, he said, How many hired servants of my father's have bread enough to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and sinned against you, and I am not any more worthy to be called your son, and make me as one of your hired servants. And he arose and came to his father. But when he was yet a great way off, his father saw him, and had compassion, and ran, and fell on his neck, and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, and in your sight, and I am no more worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Bring forth the best robe, and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand, and shoes on his feet. And bring hither the fatted calf, and kill it, and let us eat, and be merry. For this is my son, who was dead, and is alive again. He was lost, and is found. And they began to be merry. Now the elder son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard the music and dancing. And he called one of the servants, and asked what these things meant. And he said unto him, Your brother is come, and your father has killed the fatted calf, because he has received him safe and sound. And he was angry, and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and entreated him. And he answering said to his father, Look, these many years have I served you, neither have I done any wrong by you at any time. He followed his commandments, and you never gave me a kid, a goat, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as your son was come, which had devoured your living with harlots, with prostitutes, you have killed for him the fatted calf. And he said unto him, Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. And it's good that we should be merry and glad, for your brother that was dead is alive again, and was lost and is found. And so the first thing the bishop said that was important, and helped me. The story is always titled the story of the prodigal son, the one who took all the inheritance and left and wasted it. We have a tendency to think that prodigal might mean evil, or one who is just hell-bent. And what it really means is someone who's wasteful, someone who's been given something valuable, and they just waste it. And we can all identify with that aspect, because we've all been given something precious, and we've wasted it, whether it be time, our abilities, our opportunities, time at a job, all that. We've wasted our potential. I've wasted my potential, and there were a lot of moments in this sermon where it got to me pretty good. This story is to illustrate how God deals with people who have been wasteful with what they've been given. And guess what? That's all of us. And so, in summation, what's God's response to the wasteful person? He welcomes you back with open arms. And then from there, Bishop starts developing on that thought. So this first point was that grace forgives all failure and all sin. It's a failure to waste your potential. It's a failure to miss out on opportunities. It's sinful to be negligent in what God's given you. But that doesn't mean that God can't restore your purpose and who you are. And that's the kind of God that Christians believe in. It's a restoring God. It's a loving God. And Bishop went on to further say, there's nothing bad enough that you can't be reached or forgiven. And we tend to look at the fruit of our bad actions. Our negligence has brought us these certain misfortunes. It's wasted our money, made it to where we're not at the place in life where we should be. But Jesus came to deal with the root of those fruits. The real root is that you are placing your own pleasure or your own independence over honoring what God's given you. And if you abide with God, as a vine abides in the root of a grape plant, He'll produce the good fruit through you. And Jesus came to cut off the power that holds you in captivity, that keeps you in a cycle of being negligent with the gifts of life that God's given you. And so one of those powers is the independent spirit. You wanting to live a life without consulting God, taking His inheritance, His gifts, and spending them on whatever you want to spend them on. And that's what that child did. That's what the prodigal son did. Is he took his entire inheritance. He wasted what Bishop said was a third of everything that the father had earned on wasteful living, and he wound up with nothing, and he was sleeping with pigs, and he didn't even get food to eat. But in his father's house, there was more than enough. So the point is abiding with God, and your needs are met, and from there you will achieve a higher purpose than just meeting your needs and your own pleasure. So you will actually help the world around you. And so the independent spirit drives you away from God, and so it's important that Christ comes and breaks that, so you are driven to God and you're able to commune with God. And it's an important note to realize that the prodigal wasn't in with the pigs until he had his inheritance. Bishop was saying that many times when you're poor or in lack, the true depravity of your heart's not revealed because you don't have the money and resources and time to spend it on your own pleasure. But when you get enough money, resources, and time, it shows where your heart actually is, because you begin to seek the things that your heart actually wants. And so if you begin to seek after material things and pleasing yourself and living independently from wisdom, it's showing that you have this independent bent and a bit towards, you could say, wickedness that needs to be cleaned out. And I know that's in everybody. I know that's been in me. So I'm not claiming perfection when I'm telling you this. Let's see here. Okay, and so that goes to the power of indulgence is coupled with an independent spirit. This example of this is when you have enough resources to do whatever you want, you begin to indulge yourself. And so King David had enough resources to please not only him, but if he could live 1,000,000 years, enough. And so he didn't need any more wives, but he saw Bathsheba and he wanted her, and he took her because he wanted to indulge himself, and he was given to his own independence. He was sustaining himself. And so Bishop gave the examples of when in the 1920s We had the Roaring Twenties when everything was a party in America, and then we went into a Great Depression, and then that led to World War II. And the succession of events is boiled down to when you have everything you want and have so much money that you can do whatever you want, you don't stop at that. You go to take from others without warrant. You take from others, and the depression was based off of the stock market crash, which involved people inflating the market so they can make money off of it, it was a very good example of showing how when you seek pleasure and indulgence and your independent spirit, you come to a place where you begin taking from other people in order to satisfy your own desires, and there's a lot of wickedness bound up in that. And what Bishop ended that point with was, no matter how independent or indulgent you become, the grace of God stands there in front of you, waiting for you to accept you back and restore you. And so that goes to grace that God has is a love that it goes beyond explanation. How this prodigal son was trying to determine how he will explain this sin to his father, and the father didn't care. Whenever the son came and was trying to explain and say, "I'll just be a servant in your house," the father didn't even listen to him. He began saying, "We're going to get all this together for the party. My son who was dead is alive again." And this grace that God has doesn't rub the sin in and doesn't demand an explanation. His grace is greater than your explanation. And so the bishop ended that thought on why do we make people squirm for our forgiveness? Why do we keep bringing up their wrongs when we say that we forgive them or let something go? And then that goes to the next point. Grace does not reduce a person. The father did not respond in a religious way to the son, putting limitations on his service or on his potential after that point. And we as people normally say, especially in the church, "Oh, say you're a divorced person, you can never serve in ministry again." We lower their usability in the kingdom, and that's wrong. What God is showing as the Father is that when He welcomes you back, He restores you, and we're going to see in the next point that He restores you to full authority in the kingdom as a son. And so Jesus came to reveal the heart of the Father, which is restoration. Jesus came to a world of orphans who were stepchildren, believing that they needed to earn their acceptance, and God makes you a full child of His. You are not any less than a first son in the kingdom, a first daughter in the kingdom. And so the next point is God's grace is a grace that celebrates. The bishop was saying that Christian churches and Christians ought to be the happiest places and people on the earth. And the celebration part goes to the Father put the robe on him. Christ clothes you with righteousness that you didn't deserve or earn. He provides that which we could never get. He gave him the family signet ring to authorize deals and transactions, and he gave him sandals because only slaves went barefoot in those days. And so he restored him to full sonship. And then we have the fifth point, that grace frustrates human pride. As people, we take pride in what we can earn, but what do we do with the fact that we can't earn God's grace? It's freely given to us. And a lot of times people are upset when they see that someone's getting something that they didn't earn. And that's where the older son was. He was angry that the son who wasted all his dad's inheritance was receiving honor that he didn't believe was due to him, because the older son claimed to be a good son, doing everything his father asked, and not getting anything. But the The point is God, the elder son's heart wasn't with the father. He was working enough to get the father's blessing, but he didn't want the father. He wanted the blessing. And when you treat God as a sugar daddy, that's not the relationship that God wants. God wants a close hugging, weeping on the neck, acceptance, and working side by side with you. The point of the whole sermon is, no matter what you think you've wasted, no matter how prodigal you think you've been, God will restore you and restore the time that you think you've wasted and make you useful in the less amount of time than you thought you'd need, because in your faithfulness in returning, He is faithful to restore you. And so take heart. Samson was someone who was very prodigal for the story that they told in the Bible, and there at the end, God was able to use him because he submitted and allowed God to work through him and give him strength again to finish his task in judgment. So take heart. God wants to restore you. And it was another good sermon here at the gate. So I hope you guys got something out of it. Hope I see you at church next Sunday. Thanks, guys. Bye.